Trust is the bedrock of how we accomplish our mission. There is absolutely no way that an organization like ours that attests to be rooted in community, that attests to be beholden to the principles of equity can be impactful, can be effective without having trusted relationships. And trusted relationships takes time.
MCR, from a value proposition, is willing to ask the questions first and foremost. Is willing to be at tables with people with capital and ask those questions, right? At the other end of the spectrum, right, willing to meet groups in parks like this, in their spaces where they're doing the work that they're doing, and say, how can we help? What do you need and how can we help?
MCR is really good at listening to people and meeting them where they actually are at. So there are fundamental similarities between how nonprofits are functioning, but there's also storylines that need to be understood. Because the thing is that each community is slightly different, and people that live in a community or work with a certain group of people, they really understand what those needs are.
And so the idea of having an intermediary be willing to be on the ground where a lot of the grassroots work is happening and say, we've got not just access to resources, we have capital, we have social capital, we have resources in terms of the networks that we have developed or are part of, and we can leverage that. But in order to do that, you have to be there, right? And so this is not something that happens in a conference room downtown, right? This is something that where you have to demonstrate a willingness to get out of that office framework of intermediaries.
The need of yesterday may not be the need of today, and I think it's really important that we stay in touch with folks that we serve, we stay present, and that simply doesn't, and I say this in the context of being in a post-COVID environment, that doesn't mean just being on the phone or being behind a Zoom screen. It necessitates being on the ground, in communities, sometimes in folks' homes. It may be in a meeting, wherever the need is at. We find ourselves in places and spaces where we can be as proximate as we can, so that one, we can adapt our services, adapt the way that we think about our own impact to be change agents alongside those that we serve.
The foundations don't really understand the lay of the land. They don't really understand the nuance or the neighborhood politics. They don't understand the details of what's going on in the communities. And because there's this uncertainty, the tendency then is to give grants to long-established, well-rounded, well-known, long in years organizations.
There's been a lot of foundations that have overlooked a lot of nonprofits on virtue only that, well, they don't have a demonstrated track record of success. So we're always asking, well, how do they get that unless somebody gives them money so they can demonstrate that they can do that?
We say, what about all those that weren't awarded funds? What do we do with them? What is our ethical responsibility if we want to push against the grain of the dominant way of grant giving and grant making? We feel like we have some kind of ethical responsibility to do something with them. And so one of the ideas that we've been tossing around is the possibility of making them a cohort, right? Not driven by funds given, but driven by funds not given.
The cohort model comes from the simple premise that we are better together, and that we inherently learn from the collective experiences of other people doing incredible things. As a combined unit, they're also thinking about opportunities to collaborate, opportunities to put their brain trust together and make amplified change that will impact the communities that they serve.
So the North End Resilience Project is one example where you sort of say the North End is one of those communities where there's a lot happening by grit and effort, but not a lot of recognition and not a lot of philanthropic giving.
The North End Resilience Project is a partnership with the Knight Foundation, and I'm really excited about this partnership because it's a forward-facing opportunity to invest in Black and Brown-led organizations in the North End. This partnership that we have is two-pronged. We're providing capacity building services, but alongside Quattro, we're also providing financial resilience services. We also have the opportunity to do and provide workshops, and the other sort of exciting piece of this is that we're also going to be putting together a storytelling initiative that amplifies the missions of these organizations, but really the stories of residents that live in the North End.
All the while we're pushing against foundations to say, like, why aren't you recognizing them yet? Why? How can we help them get their projects to a point that makes sense to a foundation? Whether that's fair or not all the time is the system that we work with.
Historically, there's great power in the foundation, and there's little power in the community.
Although most of the work that we do at Michigan Community Resources is rooted in and around the city of Detroit, when you think about ways to connect individuals and organizations to one another, when you think about the challenges that exist in communities, when you think about opportunities to work collaboratively and in cohort, it doesn't matter whether you're in the city of Detroit or anywhere else.
Pontiac is really interesting. When I was asked to work in Pontiac, at first I was like, I live in Detroit, I don't want to go up there, I don't feel like I know that community, and I wasn't super enthusiastic about it.
Pontiac is, I think, historically has been overlooked because Detroit is so close.
And then I learned that that is such a huge sentiment of what Pontiac experiences all the time.
My name is Coleman Yoakum. I am the executive director at Micah 6 Community. We are an organization that's been serving Pontiac now for 10 years. Pontiac has a lot of similar type struggles, similar type issues, the similar history of sort of having a mono economy for a long time of manufacturing and then having that pulled out from under us. Pontiac sits in the middle of one of the wealthiest counties in the country, and so the foundation community goes, well, why isn't the county kicking in, or why isn't the surrounding communities kicking in? We're basically neighbors with West Bloomfield and Birmingham and sort of a lot of places with a lot of wealth and affluence, and so it is sometimes harder to get the attention of the foundation community to some of the really good things that are happening in Pontiac.
In 2021, we, Michigan Community Resources was asked to support the Pontiac Funders Collaborative, which is a division of Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan, in their first rounds of capacity building grants. We were asked to come in a slightly deeper way in 2021 and 2022. I stepped in as a resource navigator, and the addition in the round 2 was that not only would we be supporting them in capacity building projects, but we'd also help to facilitate cohort convenings and try to build even more continuity between the grantees.
Being involved with MCR sort of raises sort of the level of attention and in some ways credibility of the projects that are going on in Pontiac. Something like a cohort also allows a bunch of us to come together and partner on projects, and so whereas we might have been one organization sort of jumping up and down and asking for attention and for support, now if you can put 2 or 3 organizations together that are doing really good work, then that sort of scales sort of the attention and the size and often the ability to sort of really address an issue.
But I think what makes MCR, again, for me in my limited time, unique is that we look at this idea of cohort and we don't just stop at the request or at the partnership with philanthropy.
We are privileged to work with groups that sometimes don't have much, but they find the means and the wherewithal to do all the things with very little. And we try our best to, again, spend enough time with those that we partner with those that we serve, so that we can create greater context around the what, the why, and the how. And then hopefully that will build trusted relationships so that we can go forth and do amazing, amazing things.
Love me. Here I am.
Okay, can you get back on that chair?